I got some sleep, I read a lot of feedback, and I went and rewatched the Loki finale. And I have to admit something, guys. I was wrong in my review. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and look, I have to preface this. I reviewed Loki last night. I reviewed it quickly because that's what we got to do here as our jobs. If you don't review it quickly, you just don't get in the algorithm as much. And that's what we need to do, is get in the algorithm and review these shows. But I realized in reviewing it so quickly, in reviewing it after a stream where I drank a lot of gin, and then at 4 a.m. was definitely grumpy and not fully there to enjoy what was actually a more enjoyable episode than I touted, I wanted to go back and correct it. It's important we correct ourselves when we're wrong. Doesn't mean we're changing our opinions, but you're allowed to change your opinion sometimes. And in fact, when you rewatch things, sometimes things get better. But when I rewatched it, I realized I missed some stuff because I was sort of dozing in and out, and I shouldn't have just posted that review. And that was wrong. I'm not going to review films anymore or shows at 4 a.m. unless I've had my sleep. Lesson learned. That's on me. Hey, sometimes we all make mistakes. I want to correct the mistake because the reality is I don't want to be a killjoy on the Marvel shows or in the Marvel universe. I do still have a problem that I mentioned in my title, and I'm going to talk about that. But I want to start with some of the positives that I ignored in this show. And rewatching the episode again for a second time, now that I had slept and I could actually really fully process it, the show really did wrap up everything pretty nicely. Again, I'm going to get into spoilers now. I'm going to talk about it, but so if you haven't watched it, be warned. But I got to give Tom Hiddleston's Loki more respect than I did. I also respected Kang the Conqueror. Sorry, he who shall not be named, or the whatever I forget the name they called him. There's everyone has a million theories as which Kang that is, etc. I'm just going to call him Kang the Conqueror, so we're all on the same page. Jonathan Majors, Kang, I have to give him more props as well. I was missing a lot of the nuance when I watched it late, and I shouldn't have reviewed it so quick and hastily because he was giving a lot more there than I realized he was. And it was setting up a lot of interesting ideas and a lot of wrestling with faith and free will and what's the greater good. It was actually a much better conversation the second time around, I'll be honest. And clearly it was a lot better for you guys the first time around, and why a lot of you were sort of annoyed with me with my review. That's why I'm correcting things, because I did rewatch it. And there's a lot there. There's a lot of stuff, and it does really sort of sum up what this season is. I keep wanting these shows to be sort of movies that have endings as stories. But the reality is these are TV shows, and a lot of TV shows leave cliffhangers for you to sort of continue. It isn't until the show's over that you should sort of say, well, we didn't get an ending. There's a lot of Sopranos, a lot of shows that have sort of done that to us. Knowing that we get a season 2, and this is just sort of the beginning, I do think they gave us a lot at the end to sort of explain what's going on and what's going to happen in the future. And I do have to say, look, it is actually pretty interesting to see how the multiverse was created. And watching it again and watching him sort of sit there, watching that back and forth between the Lokis, trying to figure out, wait a second, is he tricking us? Is he not? Is he being genuine? Is he actually the nicest of these variants? And watching Tom Hiddleston's Loki really become the good guy. And really sort of after all of his efforts through all the movies, the MCU and everything, all the losses, killing his own mother, all this stuff that he's been wrestling with, this TVA storyline has finally allowed him to sort of find himself and look at himself in the mirror and become the best version of himself. And I got to say, it's actually really interesting. And it's a character I've never really appreciated, that now in watching again and watching it more awake and processing it all, you really can see the nuance that Tom Hiddleston is bringing, and I respected it and appreciated it a lot more the second time. He's doing so much there. In fact, for everybody who hates Sylvie, which I know there's some out there who didn't like her or thought they were forcing her in, she really is overreacting and does sort of an impulsive, annoying move. She really sort of messes things up because she doesn't have the experience, the self-awareness, the education that Loki, Tom Hiddleston's Loki, has. So she makes a impulsive mistake. And so you could blame her and say, oh, it's stupid, idiot. Because really it does seem like she made the choice, which she was always going to do because she was being stubborn, to do what she wanted, to be selfish and get what she wanted. And even as Kang screams at her something at one point, you hypocrite, you're a murderer. Like, he's right. It's kind of a fascinating thing where she refuses to even accept it. But there we see actual character growth, a character arc of our hero, Loki, finally becoming the rational good guy, digesting all of this information from Kang and deciding, wait a second, we got to actually think about this. And the show did a good job of sort of creating that. Sylvie doesn't really believe him or understand. She thinks he's doing a Loki thing just like she is. She doesn't realize he's capable of actually, growing as a character. And so all of that stuff, I ignore. I was not paying attention because I was grumpy and not really paying attention. And it's all there. So look, no more 4 a.m. reviews from me. I'm going to sleep and make sure I process my movie reviews, my Disney shows in the morning of. But look, I see why a lot of people are interested in this show now and why they liked where it went. Yes, was it predictable? Yes, it still was predictable in a way, but it gave us what we wanted, and I do think it delivered what we sort of expected it to do. And I think the acting was great, and it set up an interesting idea of like, oh, now what? Now the cons. It still is ultimately just a tease. It's a big tease for things that are coming, but it did sort of sum up and tie up sort of the loose ends of sort of what happened. It explained what happened. We know what's going on, and so I can't give the show a complete knock because, look, that's what TV shows do, and it did deliver. It did reveal a lot, and it's sort of teasing up like, whoa, look at all this stuff that's coming. Now, the reality is we know that stuff's coming, but now we know why it happened. We know how it's all going to connect with Wanda now. Now she can sort of clearly see or speak to all these sort of alternate realities in theory, it seems. Doctor Strange is going to sort of realize the threat that's coming. All of this is coming to a head in both Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. We're going to see a lot more of the effects of what happened here in Loki finale in those movies. So, which, those are the ones I'm most excited for. And so I think part of me and my grumpiness was just sort of frustrated. And I can see why a lot of fans are. They're just like, oh, come on, get to it already. The reality, though, is I think there was a good justification and a worthy stop here to explain why it all is branching off the way it is. But you could also argue Disney is stretching all this out to sort of give more content for Disney Plus to get paid to stretch it out, just like the comics did back in the day. I went over to the Nerd Tots. Go check out Nerd Tots, Don's and Angel's stream where they do their comic lovers. They loved it, and I know just watching their excitement of it, I realized there is a lot going here. And I talked with Don, especially about the comics and how it's sort of Marvel is turning into the comics and how I worry that could be a bad thing because the comics did ultimately go bankrupt and had problems sort of continuing to keep the audience there. The more we sort of spread all this out and the crazier we get, I do worry it's eventually going to collapse on itself. But I think right now we're still in a interesting era and we're telling exciting stories and stuff's happening. And they are sort of, it is all justified in the Marvel sense of what's happening. I have to give the show credit for sort of setting all it up. I really liked last week, too. I didn't review last week. A lot of you just assumed I didn't like last week. I thought Richard E. Grant was amazing. I loved the idea of sort of in this world of these other variants and seeing all the Lokis sort of stuck in this place of trying to escape. It was a really good episode, probably one of my favorite of the season. And so, look, coming off that, I sort of had high expectations, and when I watched it grumpily, I just didn't see all the nuance there that there is. And I think the reality of these shows, and why I see there's a lot of divisiveness here, even in my own channel and the like ratio, etc. Look, there's a lot of people who are sort of just over the Marvel-ness. And there's a lot of Marvel fans who will just accept it all. And I think I'm sort of still smack in the middle of it of like, yeah, look, I'm still a Marvel fan. I'm excited. I like it. I'm going to watch it all. I get excited for this stuff. But there is a little bit of fatigue happening and setting in. And I'm wondering how much longer can all this connect? And so I see both sides of this. I see why people are excited because you're finally getting these sort of stories and comics explained and in details and a lot of Easter eggs and things coming out that you're just like, wow, what a world we live in where we're getting all this comic content. But I can see the other side of people just getting sort of annoyed of like, where's the stories? Just stop teasing and continuing to do everything. And I fell into that trap last night. As I watched it again, I have to give the show a little bit more respect because I do think they really did tie everything up, explain everything, and then tee up an interesting, like, well, now what? Oh, crap. What's this mean? Now, there's still a lot of confusion that comes with time travel. I still have some issues of, did Miss Minutes deal? Was he trying to get a deal? Did he not want the deal? There's still a lot of questions of what's that mean, and then which Kang shows up. Obviously, we don't know. What all that means, we'll find out, I guess, in season 2, or apparently Ant-Man Quantumania is supposed to have Kang the Conqueror as a villain. They've announced that. So it'll be interesting to see where all this goes. But I have to admit, the show itself, from beginning to end, I can tell you it really does at least give you a story. It doesn't wrap it up. It doesn't end the story, but it does sort of give this journey of Loki becoming the hero. And in watching that and realizing that, I appreciated it more. Seeing Loki's arc and seeing him basically succeed at his mission of finding the variant and figuring out what's going on. He can't stop her, sadly, but his mission was to figure out who it was and what's going on. He really got to the root of it, and he fell for her. He fell in love with her. There is a love story there of an opportunity lost, and he's had real loss. Like he regret in his loss, like when he killed his mother. He talked about that in the show, and it doesn't feel like Sylvie has had that moment yet where she's realized what she's done. She's just so angry at the world. She's not seeing the fact that she is a hypocrite and a murderer, as Kang himself called her out. That only fueled her anger even more because she was so, blinded by it all. That you realize, look, these characters are having emotional arcs that I have to give this respect for, because I think they did stretch. They told it, at a good pace. You got to know these characters, and there is a moment there where they really do sort of give that to you. So respect to the show. I do think as a show overall, I am going to put Loki now up top. I think Loki is the most interesting and the most daring, and didn't hold back on the reveals. It really does sort of tell you everything. I think we got spoiled with WandaVision, expecting so much that was our own doing. And I do think watching late at night probably definitely deterred my experience of not appreciating as much as I could have. I still think they held on to the curtain too long on WandaVision. It would have been interesting to see what happened if we dropped that show next, which was the plan. That was always supposed to be the third show. Would we have been more impatient, less impatient? I wonder. But at the end of the day, Loki, it is technically a tease. It's still a tease for stay tuned for more of the MCU. That's what the MCU is becoming, which is, to me, a red flag. Let's be careful, MCU. But it does answer a clear chapter that we need to set up the big, exciting movies that are coming up, showing, hopefully taking advantage and giving us the multiverse. So overall, yeah, look, I was wrong. I should have slept. I'm not going to review the movies again while I'm hungover on gin. Screw you, Ryan Reynolds, for your crisp, clear aviation product. But look, I also the reality of why I did this wasn't to sort of change my opinion for the comments. I don't want to be a killjoy in this and sometimes I really don't like things, and I'm going to always be honest. But when I noticed and rewatched it and realized, yeah, you were being a little more negative than I think you realized it, Andy, because you were grumpy, I wanted to correct it, because I do want to enjoy these shows, and I want to try and review them fairly, and I don't feel like I reviewed the show fairly. So in this instance, I'm going to be the better man. I'm going to admit I was wrong in my review. I'm going to members only that review. It's going to be, here, look, it's right there if you want to see it. The record still exists. I'm not deleting it, but I'd rather you guys stumble upon this clarification than that one. And I'm probably going to lose a lot of views. I don't care. It's more important for me to have my actual feeling out there corrected than the one that's getting all the views because I put it out early. Lesson learned for all of us creators. Make sure you really take a breath, get some sleep, review it properly before you react, because I don't want this. That is not the goal of my channel here. So thank you guys for hearing me out. Hopefully, what do you guys think? Did you appreciate it? Did you like where it was going? It is a big long speech, but I think I was just tired in watching it in the morning day. It was a solid speech. It was a good back and forth of what's going on. Is he really the good version? Is he really the bad version? Well, I do think it was his plan all along for Kang to wait for that to happen. That moment where he's like, I don't know what's going to happen next, and he sort of loves it, to me was real. And I realized I missed that. I don't think that was part of his plan. I don't think he knew. But I think he knew, like, look, we're gonna try something new finally, and which I'm excited for, or I'm just gonna come back and it's all gonna happen again. It is what it is. But it'll be more versions and it'll be worse. I've already done it. I guess I'll do it again. Something interesting to do at least. Interesting idea. I'm intrigued to see more, but really the marks come from Tom Hiddleston, his performance, his arc. Bravo. He really solidified why I have to switch this review to more positive, because I think ultimately it does end strong because of him. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm crazy for changing my mind? Did you rewatch it yourself? Did you miss that stuff too? Do you just not like the Marvel universe? Tell me your thoughts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that bell for all alerts, and hit the like button so you get content notified in your feed. And make sure to check out these videos as well. We'll be on Hugging the Cactus tonight live, 9 p.m. Join us there. And we'll also be here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. on Popcorn Planet.